Check this out. Got a 95 Toyota truck. I think actually it's technically a Tacoma. So they changed over pretty close to this time period. So Tacoma, it's got the 2RZ 4-cylinder. Customer concern is coolant loss. So step one, I did a coolant pressure test. I noticed the pressure was dropping on the pressure tester. So I'd pump it to 15 psi, which is right about where the cap calls for, right? So it'd be up at the 15 arrow. It's now at 0. And I like to do that, and I like to walk away for a while, and I'd come back after 10 minutes and it would be dropped down. I did that a couple times. It's real easy to work on this thing. So I pulled all 4 spark plugs. I looked down in the hole with a good flashlight, and I found, a couple things. When I laid the spark plugs out, and I've already shot most of them back in, this spark plug was looking a little rusty. So spark plugs aren't supposed to get rusty. So that was a clue. And then I cranked it over, and I noticed what appeared, like looking down in there good with the light, what appeared to be possible water drops. The next step would be to send a camera down. And I haven't used my camera in a while. This one's old, so the bulb is no good. So I got this one, and this one actually works good, but the head, the camera head on this Harbor Freight Special is too big to fit through the spark plug hole. So let's walk away from that. So pulling some strings, and it gets a little bit difficult, but this is a cheap way to diagnose it. My number one diagnose would be if it's losing pressure but you see no coolant anywhere. You're going to really want to see if the engine's eating it. I didn't see any foaming or there's no oil dilution. In other words, there's no coolant making it down into the crankcase, at least at this time. But the fact that it's losing coolant could mean the suspect head gasket, right? Especially because I see the drops, especially because I see the rust. This is a good way to do it. Basically going to get yourself a cylinder leakage tester. Compression, by the way, won't really show this. This is a very small compression loss. It's better you could go to compression, and then compression's being conclusive, you're going to go to this anyway. Cylinder leakage tester. So how we get this set up, I hook air to this. I go ahead and I turn the knob to set. Like, I'll just get it off a set just for your reference. Right, so I'm going to bring it up to the set position, like right around 0. And then there's a lot of different ways to do this, but I'm working solo, and what you should do is get that cylinder, right, not 1, 2, but cylinder 3, my suspect cylinder, to top dead center compression. But that's really a pain in the butt, dropping a screwdriver down there, and then when the piston's up at top dead, but you don't know if that's on exhaust or on compression, so I don't really do that. I'll just go ahead and I put 3 spark plugs back in. I left one out. I put the adapter in. I'll stab air to it. And if it's not on compression, which is most likely not, it can be on compression or power, by the way. So if it's on compression or power, you'd stab it in there and you'd get a pretty low leakage. But if it's not on those strokes, it's probably going to get a pretty high leakage. At that point, I'll leave it on there. I'll go down to the crankshaft. In this case, it's a 19 millimeter. I use my ratchet. I turn it over. It's easy. Then it starts to get difficult. Then I'll just stop right there, undo the air, go a little bit further. So that way I know I'm into either compression or power, which it's into compression, right? Because I'm turning clockwise. So it was on exhaust. It was easy. And then I start compression, and that sucker tightens right up. I go a little bit further, and then I lock my breaker bar in there. So this, this is not per manufacturer specs. If you want manufacturer specs, get the heck off of YouTube. But I wedge the breaker bar in there. It's on the crankshaft sprocket. It's on the crankshaft bolt on the pulley. And with that thing locked, my next step is keep my radiator cap off, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm gonna put air to it, and we'll see how much leakage we got, and I want to show you my findings. I've already diagnosed this one. I'm walking you through. Boom, stab it on there. Low leakage. Check it out. Water's not supposed to be coming up. ¿Qué pasó? Okay, so see, de nada. The problem is what you're doing basically, you're sending air into the cylinder. The cylinder should be sealed. I should show low leakage. I show low leakage, so like we're thinking everything is good. The problem is you saw it pushing air through the radiator. So his concern is really coolant loss. It actually doesn't seem to misfire, although I wouldn't be surprised if it was parked for a while. It might misfire on startup, right? Because we know that the coolant pressure is going to probably rise up to close to 15 psi. At that point, it's not going to push into the engine. The compression may be pushing combustion gases in here. So at that point, we actually could have done a chemical block test, and that would have failed. But I didn't have a chemical block test here, so I do it. There's a lot of different ways to do the diagnosis. So somebody's going to come up real smart and say, oh, you could test it like X, Y, and Z. And that's true, but this is another way. So I just showed you. We put air. Let me finish what I was saying. When you shut the engine off, if this is 15 psi, with engine off, water is going to seep into that cylinder, and that would make sense why this is rusty, right? So this made sense right from the get-go. But at this point, I'm injecting air to cylinder 3. I'm looking, I'm listening. You know, if I've got air blowing out here, I'm thinking rings or bottom end. If I've got air blowing out of the air box, I'm thinking intake valve. If I got air blowing out of the exhaust, I'm thinking exhaust valve. If I've got air coming out of the cylinder right next door, I'm thinking the head gasket, but that would be like the head gasket between the two cylinders. That would cause a misfire, but this is a coolant pressure loss, a coolant loss. So what's really happening is the coolant is going into the cylinder. During the leakage test, the air is going through the leaking head gasket, ending up in the cooling system, and ended up bubbling right here, as you witnessed. So this one's diagnosed. It's a little bit more of a story to it than that. Supposedly, this head gasket's new. And I was looking, and at first I said, no way, doesn't look new. But check a little bit. That does look like it may be new. So now we got a little bit more of a complex issue. So this was Shade Tree mechanic job, and allegedly a head gasket. Now it's coming to me for various reasons. But if you got the symptom, you're going to say head gasket. But the fact is, we have no way to determine if that head gasket's bad, or if the head is cracked, or if the block is cracked, or if the head is warped. So what the professional thing to do at this point is say, hey, we need basically, I'm going to quote him for a head gasket, but I'm also going to say, and we need to check the head for cracks, warpage, etc. Being that this head gasket's new, right? It looks newer. Maybe it had bad gasket prep and it just didn't seal and just needs to be redone. But more than likely, there's going to be something wrong with this head. So I'm going to say, and probably it's going to be additional. Resurface the head, it out to be welded, maybe a new head, maybe a used head. But basically, I know we got a quote-unquote head gasket that's more than likely going to turn into a cylinder head repair type situation. So hope that helps, right? This tells you the bubble's coming up, and this tool's like $25. So in a way, you'd maybe be better off doing this yourself so you know what you really got. But hopefully that helps somebody, that thorough explanation.